So I attended Gamescom this year, which is crazy. I didn't think that was ever going to happen because it's all the way out in Cologne, Germany, but I was contacted by Aaron from Renaissance PR who invited me and a few other amazing creators to this event, and it was quite literally life-changing. Crystal got to go with me. It was fantastic. I got to play a ton of games there, and I'm going to talk about what I got to play at the event. Granted, I'm not going to talk about everything because some embargoes have not been lifted yet, but I want to rank everything I played from Gamescom, at least what I can talk about right now. I'm also going to be joined in this video by my buddy old pal Don, who got to play some games that I'm not really familiar with, so I needed him to come in and just play what I didn't understand. But before we begin, I just want to thank Aaron from Renaissance PR once again for bringing me and Crystal out to Gamescom. We had a ton of fun and we got to see Germany, which was really cool. But now, let's get to the list. Starting with Unknown 9 Awakening, a narrative action-adventure where players use dimensional powers to take on enemies in various ways. It's at the bottom of my ranking because the demo was honestly bad. It began with a video explaining the controls, of which there was a lot to remember in a short time, so I forgot most of them and was thrown into this battle with loads of abilities at my disposal, which I didn't remember how to use. That resulted in me dying numerous times. It would be one thing if I started the game from the beginning and learned each ability as I got them, but that's not what happened here, and I had a rough time. That isn't to say the final game will be just as bad, but I guess we'll find out when it comes out in October. And now for another game with Awakening in its title, Dune Awakening, a survival MMO set in the Dune universe. Or should I say Duneverse?
Listen, Gabe!
I'm not usually into this genre, and while the demo wasn't perfect, I still came away more interested than I was previously. I started in the middle of the Arrakis desert with almost nothing but the clothes on my back and a knife, but the simple act of exploring led me to some campsites and enemy outposts where I quickly got useful gear like a gun and a device that turns blood into water for you to drink. Yes, that's a real thing. Even though the gameplay felt solid and the item management was easy to comprehend, I remain hesitant about the game because I don't know if it will be fulfilling for me. I want Dune Awakening to be more than just a sandbox, pun very much intended. I want there to be meaningful story elements and an ultimate objective to strive for, which is not something this genre, to my knowledge, has been known for. There seemed to be hints of that in some abandoned labs I explored, and I hope it all leads to something interesting. Still, the Gamescom demo was solid, and I at least hope fans of survival MMOs will find something to enjoy here. But these next two games were played by Don, so I'll let him take over from here.
The fact that we're getting a new Budokai Tenkaichi game in 2024 is absolute insanity to me, and I also still cannot believe it that Sparking Zero is like 2 months away. I'm not the best at fighting games, but I know one thing for sure. This game is making me already unbelievably happy. So during the demo we played 45 minutes of this game. I got to experience so many of the characters. I got to play with their intricate movement, with their specials, with their standard attacks. I could home in on opponents and immediately continue smashing. I could fly up, fly down, interact with the environments, every little hoo-ha, and I had a blast. It also took me a little while to learn the little new intricacies of this game. There's a new short dash. There's also a revenge counter where you could absorb a bit of the enemy's attack and immediately strike back. And that was unbelievably fun to pull off. Funny enough, when I booted up the demo, they wanted us to use standard controls, and I immediately moved back to the class controls, what I knew before of Budokai Tenkaichi, and it just felt still so unbelievably good. It will take forever to talk about every single character that I played, because I played a bunch of them. In 45 minutes, you still get enough time to see some good and strong parts of what this game can offer. It was only all battles, but playing with Cell, Android 16, Captain Ginyu, Goku, Frieza, Trunks. I just went all the way through. And I just wanted to see the breadth and depth of like every single thing that's available in here. And God, also seeing Brawly in this game. And all forms of Brawly from Super. That was pretty crazy. Once again, I'm not the best at naming the intricate details of the characters and how they work. I'm just a casual enjoyer that's just really excited to play some freaking matches come October. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics. Wow, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Very excited about this. It finally got a release date. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is back. It's been a long time since the version that released on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, which won at a paltry 720p, but after years of waiting, we finally have a proper new HD version of that game, plus a whole bunch of other content, including X-Men vs. Street Fighter, which is also insane. But there's also other stuff like The Punisher, Marvel Superhero Street Fighter, and also the original Marvel vs. Capcom, obviously. The only game that I've actually played during my demo session of half an hour was Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes. It plays exactly as you remember it. When I saw the intro movie, I became happy again. The characters that were in the game, over 50 of them, the atmosphere, the music as you select your characters, it's all there. I think it's a game that is still pretty easy to learn. I mean, there's 6 buttons, so you just have to get used to the different combinations a little bit and see how you get on with it. The arcade mode is the place I spent the most time, getting used to controls again, playing a bunch of the different characters back to back. Yeah, it felt strange. Finally, we're playing this on modern system again. I will take myself for a ride when I play this in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for the info, Don, but before we move on to the next game, I just want you to know that if you pre-order the physical version of Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics, you will get a 32-page bonus comic featuring the legendary characters from the games within this entire collection, so secure that pre-order if that sounds great to you. Moving on to something I got to check out, a hands-off demo for Dying Light: The Beast. This started as a DLC expansion for Dying Light 2, but it then grew into its own game starring the protagonist from the first entry, Kyle Crane, with my buddy old pal Roger Craig Smith returning to voice the character. It felt refreshing hearing him again in the gameplay, although he sounds significantly more pissed off this time. In this demo, we saw the stuff you'd normally see in a Dying Light game: parkour, zombies getting the shit kicked out of them, and some nasty humans. Kyle used a machine gun a lot here, but the developer narrating the demo reassured me that gunplay would not be a focus here. Now you might be wondering why this is called Dying Light: The Beast. Well, that's because Kyle is now equipped with what are essentially zombie superpowers. The demo concluded with him battling a giant zombie and using beast mode to throw cars and concrete slabs at it. Other than the superpowers, this seems like a typical Dying Light game, but as someone who wasn't a big fan of Dying Light 2's factions, I'm okay with this more simplistic return to the series. If all I do in The Beast is just run around a new city fighting zombies without having to worry about pissing off petty humans, that's fine by me. Next is a game I actually stood in line to play, called King of Meat, which I can only describe as a 4-player co-op survival party game. At least it felt like a party because everyone was frantically trying to get through each stage by any means. Here you and 4 other players are contenders in a twisted game show where you try to get through dungeons filled with traps and enemies. My group happened to play through the toughest dungeon in the demo, but we managed to get through mostly scot-free, throwing bombs and shooting arrows in all directions. My experience was hampered a little bit since I was still learning the controls, but I could easily see this being a fun game to play with friends, so I highly recommend keeping this on your watch list. Let's speed on over to the hotly anticipated Sonic X Shadow Generations. I already played a demo of this at Summer Game Fest, and the levels from that demo were playable here, but there were new ones as well. The chemical plant zones from the original Sonic Generations, and the new Shadow levels being the Metal Overlord boss fight and Kingdom Valley from Sonic 06. Just with way less glitches. What I noticed after playing the Kingdom Valley stage and replaying the Summer Game Fest stage was that the Shadow levels felt a little bland. While they look visually cool, they aren't as fast as the modern Sonic stages, and they don't have nearly as many enemies. As a result, they aren't as eventful as the stages in Sonic Generations, and I certainly hope the rest of Shadow's campaign is more exciting. Thankfully, the Metal Overlord boss fight was dope as hell, with Shadow surfing on water kicking debris into the Sonic Heroes boss while the Crush 40 theme played in the background. Everything controlled so smoothly, and it was satisfying to nail those hits. Let us pray that there are more moments like these in the final game. Let's move on to Starship Troopers Extermination, which is out in early access now, but the final release is coming this October with a new single-player mode featuring the return of series protagonist Johnny Rico, played once again by Casper Van Dien from the movies. I got to interview him too, so feel free to check that out later, but we talked a lot about the game as he's a super fan of it. I got to play a few levels of this single-player mode where I was accompanied by AI troopers who would help protect me from the bugs, of which some of them now shoot projectiles, so that's fun. I initially tried going into these missions Doom Guy style, but I would immediately get devoured by bugs, so one of the developers told me I had to stay with my squad if I wanted to survive, which makes sense if you've seen the movies and know just how deadly these bugs are. The missions I played were very simple, basically securing an objective or building a mining device in the center of a cave, but the variety of weapons felt great to use and the AI companions were extremely helpful. And I've only heard good things about the 16-player multiplayer mode, so it sounds fun enough to where I might want to jump into early access. We'll see if I can gain my citizenship that way. That's a Starship Troopers reference in case you didn't know. Now we're kicking off the top 5 with the first Berserker, Khazan, a new Souls-like where you play as a hunky shirtless man. I wouldn't call myself a Souls-like master, but I enjoy the genre, and I even beat Elden Ring, so I went into this knowing what to expect. Only thing is, it's really hard. I died so many times during my short demo, and that's that I started from the beginning of the game. There were even 2 bosses that I couldn't beat. I still found the combat to be quite enjoyable, and it felt like there were consequences to letting my stamina meter run out, because then I'd get fatigued for about 2 seconds, leaving me open for attacks. This is what killed me more often than not, which is why I found parrying at the right moment to be more useful than dodging. Though I enjoyed my time with the first Berserker Khazan, I need to know more about what makes it stand out against the other games in its respective genre. But if you enjoy Souls-likes, you should keep your eyes on this one. This next game is one I wasn't looking forward to until I played the Gamescom demo, which is Life is Strange Double Exposure. I've only played the first game in the series a long time ago, so I haven't kept up with the rest of the games since, which is lucky for me because Double Exposure is actually a direct continuation of the first game. Here, our protagonist Max Caulfield is a college student who can now jump between 2 separate timelines, one where her friend Safi was murdered and another where she wasn't. This demo was set in a small science lab I had to break into to get a camera. To do this, I generated a portal to one timeline where the lab wasn't locked, where I also talked with my friend Moses, who unknowingly gave me hints as to where the camera would be in the other timeline. I was also dealing with a smartass detective in the other timeline who was rather suspicious of me for some reason. This was a very small demo both in scale and length, but it was impactful nonetheless with clever timeline puzzles and solid acting from the cast. It made me excited for the full game, and now I want to go back and play the others. And now here we are at our top 3 games from Gamescom, starting with Eternal Strands, the debut title from studio Yellow Brick Games, and it can be described as a mix of Shadow of the Colossus, Monster Hunter, and Breath of the Wild. Even though it takes clear inspiration from those games, it combines these elements together for something truly unique. Here you play as a weaver named Bryn, who uses an assortment of magical abilities to fight enemies and these gigantic bosses that roam each level. These are open areas where you gather resources to craft better armor and weapons back in the hub zone. But once you're ready, you can take on these humongous bosses. What I loved about this demo were the spells and how creative you could get with them. Sure, ice can simply freeze enemies, but why stop there? You can pin down the giant's feet with them, or use ice platforms to get across gaps. These spells can even attach to your bow and arrow, making them even more useful. You can slow down foes with magic and then burn them with some fire spells. There's virtually no limit to how you can use these powers. After playing Eternal Strands, I am convinced this is not a game you want to miss out on if you're a fan of Zelda or Monster Hunter. Oh, speaking of that, Dawn, get back here. It's time to talk about Monster Hunter Wilds.
It is honestly good to see how much Monster Hunter Wilds is taking from Monster Hunter Rise. Because Monster Hunter Rise was a pretty great game. The fluidity is still there. The fact that you have a companion, now a reptile, with you called the Secret, who you can jump on, move across the area, do your redstones, do your potions and everything. That's fantastic. There's now more open world, more an open zone where you can roam into. You can activate your quests directly from that zone and immediately jump into the action without any waiting time, which gets me pretty excited because the previous Monster Hunter games were a lot of menu work. This feels more intermediate, where you still can do a little bit of admin, but you start the meat and potatoes a bit quicker. While riding on Secret, I also felt more involved than with the Palamont in Rise. I also use them a lot to just go around the area, move away from the monsters, use a whetstone, heal myself, and carry on. There was a speed to it that I really appreciated, more so than anything else in the world. What I think is also like cooler is that there's more life in the actual hunting areas. So monsters can appear together, and I felt quickly overwhelmed by it, like way too much. Came in super confident, like I will deal with this in just a second. I will position myself, deal with this as I should, and take all of these 3 monsters down. I really shouldn't have done that. You can kind of see it in the footage. I was way too overzealous. The new focus mode allows you to look at the spots of a monster that are already damaged and deal some effective strikes in there and make them topple over or do additional damage. I think the negative part about that focus mode though is that when you use it, it's not like an auto aim. Well, it is sort of an auto aim where you still need to use the attack, but it's definitely not like particularly like a lock on. You are very focused on that enemy, so the most effective thing that you can do is attack. The problem with that is that the most effective thing that you can do is attacking. So if you want to immediately move out of the way, especially with the weapon I use, the dual blades, it becomes a bit more tricky. Trickier than I personally anticipated. Was it overall a net positive? Yes. Do I think I will get better to it once I play more with the game? Absolutely. For the moment though, I still have to get used to it a little bit. I'm not completely 100% there yet. I felt the demo was really good, even though it sort of ended with the first 2 missions and we are not allowed to talk about more, but I'm sure that will come in due time.
Finally, the best game I played at Gamescom was S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 Heart of Chornobyl. It's been a long time coming for this new entry in the S.T.A.L.K.E.R franchise, and from the demo I played of the first 30 minutes, it's shaping up to be a worthy Game of the Year contender. And I also chatted with the game's technical producer Yuji, and he and the rest of the team are so thrilled that this game is close to completion. I mean seriously, these developers went through absolute hell making this. What with the war in Ukraine, the cyber attacks, I really feel for this team, and I'm happy to report that their hard work shows in what I played. If you're like me and haven't played the original S.T.A.L.K.E.R games, you can easily start with 2. And if I had to describe what I played, it reminded me a bit of Fallout with some additional survival elements like eating when hungry, though my pal Yuji assured me that these won't constantly interrupt the gameplay. Even though this demo was set in the first half hour of the game, I got to experience a lot, such as the various anomalies of the zone, the disgusting creatures inhabiting it, and the solid gunplay to take them on. So yeah, my time with it was short, but I came away thoroughly impressed with S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 Heart of Chornobyl, and it was the standout demo I played at Gamescom. For some reason I thought it was delayed to next year, but no, it's coming out on November 20th on PC and Xbox Game Pass. I'm so excited, dude. Give it to me.